Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything going on in the world of sports. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go.
Instead of looking deep inside, every word I have to say, keep it simple.
Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What is happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, you know him. He's the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello. Early tease for you folks. I might have a teed to add to the end of the fuck the Astros bit at the end.
If that's not incentive enough to stay tuned,
yeah,
I don't know what is, but we have another reason you should stay tuned, because we have a special guest on the line, family of the show. Anytime he wants to pull up, we always make room for him to come on the show. And since we are talking sports and we are talking the NBA playoffs, there was no better time when my phone rang and he said, I need to come on and talk about the Denver Nuggets. You know him as the guru behind the Cheers to Comics podcast, the host of the Cheersies Awards, which is arguably comics' most prestigious prize outside the Eisners. And you know him from running his online comic shop as well. He does so much. What else can we say other than returning to the ODPH and has been far too long, the one, the only, Brian Wayne from the Cheers to Comics podcast. Fam, what is happening?
What the hell is up, boys? God, ooh, what an intro. Man, it feels good to be back. It feels good to hear your guys' voices in my little ears. This is awesome, man. I am so excited to talk sports. I think the last time I came on, we were talking The Walking Dead, like a couple seasons ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited to talk sports. Yeah, admittedly, you guys have been my in back into like loving sports. There was a long period where I really stopped caring. Like I'm a Chicago sports fan for the most part, minus the Nuggets. So I'm miserable all the time as a sports fan.
Fair points.
I don't have
fair
a lot
points.
to watch. But I listen to your guys' passion, and I hear you mention players. I'm like, oh shit, they're still playing. Like, there's reasons to tune in still. And before you knew it, I was getting into the locks and leaps, and I started following football, and then I just. I'm not a bandwagon fan by any means. I got a little sour as a Nuggets fan after Coach George Karl won Coach of the Year and got fired the next year.
Yeah.
I hated my team for the longest time. And the sport of basketball became real floppy, and not everyone's favorite opinion that I'm going to have here, but I think LeBron James has made the game of basketball worse. So I kind of like seeing that he's not the headline all the time. It's cool seeing the Giannis's and the Doncics, or how you say his name, the Lucas. There you go. And of course, the Big Serb, the Joker, dominating, and not LeBron, not always in the headlines, and Steph not always in the headlines. So because of that, and listening to your guys' passion about everything, I've fallen back in love with basketball again, to the point where, I'm out there on the court myself 2-3 times a week now.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, man. Like, oh man, I'm feeling nice. But yeah, man, this has been an incredibly exciting season, and it's awesome for the first time in for as long as I can really remember, having my team be the team that people should be talking about. It still pisses me off that during the whole Western Conference finals, or I mean the playoffs in general, between the East and the West. No one's talking about the Nuggets and the dominance. It was still all about, oh, who's better, Steph or LeBron, and that's the matchup that everyone wants to see. Blah blah blah. And I mean, how great was that matchup? They're just playing to see who loses next. Like it's,
yeah,
I don't know.
The whole playoffs this year, and like I say, in case you're just tuning in, this is the sports edition of the ODPH podcast. And for any additional content, make sure to head over to odphpodcast.com, because we are going to kick off the show talking about the NBA playoffs. And this season's playoffs definitely have shown a lot more parity. And I think that's something that we haven't seen in a few seasons now, because it's always been, like you touched upon a little bit, it's always been the LeBron teams, the super teams when they first formed in Miami, and then obviously going to Boston, and then the Golden State, and then the Lakers were trying to do that. And like you start seeing how the format for a winning team was shifting. And I think the past couple seasons especially, and right now too, I think you're seeing how teams are going away from that formula and going back to the basics of team basketball, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the Nuggets are a prime example of that. I mean, when the best player in the league is putting up, averaging 9.5 assists a game, I mean, there's nothing that says team effort more than that. I mean, it's about passing the ball and just creating opportunities, not trying to get a posterization on someone. It's ridiculous. And I think that's what LeBron brought to the NBA. It's all this flash. I mean, how many seasons I completely stopped watching when they started putting their nicknames on the back of their jerseys. When LeBron James had King James on the back, I was like, you know what? I think I'm done with this sport. Like, he has completely ruined the sport for me.
A couple of years ago, I think. I don't remember when, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was ridiculous. I mean, there's players had nicknames on their jerseys that no one's ever called them before.
Yeah.
It was a circus, and it was all, the LeBron show. Didn't matter how good any other team was. It was all about LeBron. And I don't know. Even in the Jordan era, I mean, there were, it wasn't like that. It was. I don't know.
Well, it
frustrates me.
Well, no, I understand that, but I think it's what happened is you've seen the game evolve over the years, and I think, and I do agree with you. I think it got away from being about the sport and it started being more about the entertainment. Kind of borrow a little bit from pro wrestling.
100%. This is what I've been saying about sports in general. For the most part, is pro wrestling has a good theory. It's all about the story. It's 100% about the story. And if they can make that story happen, then they know they're going to make more money. And they're going to do everything they can to manipulate it that way. And it's whether it be the media or, however it is.
Well, yeah.
The officiating. I mean, there's several ways that you can, bring about that storyline. And this is the problem I've had with sports in general. I mean, mainly basketball and football.
Well, I think the thing with the NBA is you see this change every couple of decades or so. And I saw a video the other day where Richard Jefferson was talking about this and how dominant Shaq was, especially in those Laker years where
absolutely.
Shaq came in and they had to change the game of basketball to adapt to his style of play, where all of a sudden you needed at least two big guys. And this is what Richard Jefferson is saying, where you needed at least two big guys, not necessarily to get you points or outstanding defensive help. No, just to eat some fouls. You saw Shaq change the game. You saw LeBron change the game, and it followed him for a little while. But what I think you're seeing now is guys like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Jokic, Luka, Giannis, and all these other guys, all these other star players that yes, you're right. For a lot of years, it was a LeBron-centered league where it's like that. It's that style of play. That's what's prominent. That's what's dominant. That's what you see the kids playing on the basketball courts and at the elementary schools. Now with guys like Luka, Giannis, Giannis, Jokic, and all these other athletes, it's showing the kids and it's showing, the front offices that like, hey, don't get us wrong. It's good to have a LeBron type, but there's more than one type of ice cream out there. You don't have to stick with just, cookie dough.
Yeah.
You can get a rocky road. You can get a strawberry flavored. You can get pick whatever flavor you want. There's more out there. And I think that's what we're seeing. And it's for the better of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And it has been nice seeing that resurgence in the last couple of years, for sure. As LeBron becomes less prominent, other stars have the chance to shine, and finally people are starting to realize that, yeah, absolutely. I like that analogy. There's so many different flavors out there. I mean, the best players, the top 5 players in the league all have such vastly different styles. I mean, just comparing Embiid and Jokic.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not the same player by any means, and they're 2 of the best players in the league.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes back to the parity that you're seeing. Because, I mean, for that stretch run, yeah, it was you had to be on a super team. And I think that experiment did not garner that much success. I mean, sure, some of those teams did win titles.
I'll say if we're talking percentages, the percentages of super teams that won titles is real low.
Yeah, it's below 500.
It's like at least 3 teams. You got to look at the
2 Heats,
the Heat teams, Boston Celtics, and then you got to say the San Antonio Spurs.
Well, Spurs with what?
Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Duncan.
You can't leave out the Lakers.
No,
yeah.
See, I always go when the free agents formed.
Sure.
See, San Antonio is a different ballgame because they did it through the draft. They didn't do, well, like I say, a couple free agents here and there, but not to the extent of we're having a special to announce where we're going.
Sure.
See, when that happened with Miami, you saw a change in the room and you saw the teams were really getting into this weird scenario like you were touching upon, Brian, too, where they were changing the story and you start having more questions about how things are getting done to create those headlines. Because once you had the decision and then you had the teams go there, how many other teams tried copying?
Shout out Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah. And then you see just recently the implosion of the Brooklyn Nets when you had Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and James Harden can't play together. You throw in Ben Simmons. That's a whole different ballgame right there.
Yeah.
But you see how that team dissolved, and now that franchise is going to be set back a few years. Arguably, no timetable on that, but it shows that in this day and age, I think the players and I think the ownerships are understanding that we need to build teams up differently. And that's what you're seeing in these playoffs, that you're seeing a lot more team basketball, and those key free agent moves are not panning out. And even to touch upon, too, as now we're into the conference finals for both, we saw the super team get formed in Phoenix, and I thought it was going to be a runaway with Kevin Durant getting added with Devin Booker and Chris Paul and company there.
Yeah.
And Denver taking it to him and defeating him. I mean, Brian, you as the Nuggets fan, what was your reaction to that series?
Oh, it kind of cut out there. Which series was that?
The Suns in Denver.
Oh man. So the series went a game longer than I expected. I expected a closeout game 5 for sure, but I didn't. The Phoenix was by far the biggest threat to me as a Nuggets fan going into that or going into the playoffs. So having to face them early was pretty terrifying. But just after game 1, I had all of the confidence. Like I feel like Phoenix had. I mean, just no threat. I knew that Booker wasn't going to be able to be consistent for as many games as it would take to come back. He had some good games for sure. And honestly, the big fluke that kept Denver from wrapping it up in 5 was I forget his name, but that dude that popped off for like 6 threes in a row at the end of the game.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then he opened up in game 6, like 0 for 5 from 3. It was a complete fluke that he was able to, because the Nuggets that game, it's not like they had no answers. It was just they'd go down and score 2. Homeboy go down and just get a lucky ass three. Like he was just throwing them up and they were just going in. He couldn't miss, and I knew there. I mean, he's not even a starter. You know, and of course they start him the next game with this hope that he's going to be magic again. And like I said, he went like 0 for 5 on his, and all he did was take threes. He finally hits 1 3 on his 6th shot. I mean, but in the end, I mean, Denver goes into the second quarter up 18, I believe, and then goes into halftime up 30. Yeah, up 30, scoring 80 points in the first half. It's just that type of dominance against a Kevin Durant, Devin Booker led team. I don't see how the Nuggets are not the surefire favorite. I was going through and looking at all the headlines and getting the opinions of these sports air quote media people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. You guys need to be on the air. Seriously, like that's what's so refreshing about your show.
We'll appreciate the
compared
compliment.
to like the Stephen A. Smiths and the Skip Bayless bullshit. But yeah. So but everyone's just the LeBron's gonna be the dominant one. Blah, blah. The Lakers this and the Lakers that, and they're trying to find all the matchups that go in, against the Nuggets. But what they seem to forget is Denver doesn't lose at home.
Yeah.
They haven't lost at home in the playoffs yet, I believe. I don't think they have. No, I don't believe so.
No, I think they're undefeated at home for this run.
Yeah, and the 4 times that the Nuggets and the Lakers have played throughout the season, the Nuggets blew them out at home. And granted, it wasn't great for them on the road, but Nuggets got 4 at home. Nuggets have 4 at home. They have a home court advantage throughout the series. There's nothing to worry. Like this is, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a sweep, but it's ridiculous after how just they trounced the Suns. Like it wasn't even close. Like the 2 games they lost, they were absolute flukes. It's not like the Nuggets didn't show up. Sure, there was the first loss was a really low scoring game, but on both ends, it wasn't a blowout. So I don't know, man. I think I'm not saying it's not going to be an exciting series. I think I just don't know what the hell it's going to take for the Nuggets to get some love in the West. It's ridiculous. I mean, even out here in Denver, I'm here in Denver, and there's no confidence out here, man. At least in my little group, there's no one talking about the Nuggets. It's all about it was all about the Phillies and the Celtics series. Now, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the East is wrapped up, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I looked up the stats for Denver in the regular season. Their home record was 34-7.
Yeah,
which is absurd.
Oh yeah, but for like what they're bringing to the table too. I mean, we got to just kind of dive into this a little bit. Denver is the number 1 seed, and they're definitely not getting any credit from anybody because they're not expected to win, even though they have the MVP on their roster. And that's kind of the wild take here because they're coming in with such a big chip on their shoulder, and rightfully so, that I think it's the edge they need right now to get over the Lakers, who defeated the Warriors 4-2 in their series. And LeBron and Anthony Davis have been coming through clutch and having resurgence of their old selves. And now is in a situation where, okay, their series is done. Are they going to be able to match up to a team that literally is playing with nothing to lose? Like, how crazy is that? If you're the number 1 seed, you're the underdog, and you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, the ball's in their court. It's theirs to lose at this point. It's Denver's series to lose. Everything is in their favor, man. There is no pressure. I mean, Joker could give 2 damns about this MVP thing. He like the dude's gonna go out there and he's gonna speak with his stats.
Yeah.
I guarantee he puts up at least 2 triple doubles in this series. He's going to average a double double for sure. He's going to average 20 throughout this series minimum. I expect Porter to go off. That's KCP, Cantavius Caldwell Pope. Those two guys are going to go off because all of the Lakers' attention is going to be on Murray and Joker. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Gordon, he has a lot of potential to go off. He's not so big. He's more of a defense guy than anything. He's just a big body in the paint, a big deterrent, which is going to be very helpful for sure. But on the nights that he's open, and I mean, if Joker's getting double teamed, someone's gonna be open, and Joker's gonna find you. It doesn't matter how many bodies you put on him. Like, the pressure means nothing to him. He's a monster. He's a giant.
Yeah.
Even AD, and I don't see them putting AD up against him either. I really don't. I think they're they want to keep AD out of foul trouble, because they they can't rely on LeBron for 7 games. They know they can't do that. He's not LeBron of 5 years ago.
Right. No, I mean, and that's a big point too. I think the keys to this series, you're going to have to see how Anthony Davis can handle Jokic. And if he can really not shut him down, because that's not going to happen. But if he can slow him down, you're going to make somebody else on the Nuggets have to step up. Whether it's KCP, whether it's Murray, who I think is the biggest X factor of the series, because both conference finals are a throwback to the bubble conference finals that a lot of people don't remember. Like, these teams have known each other for a little bit. I mean, sure, there's a couple new faces here and there, but at the end of the day, it's still those same teams. And I think when Murray was in the bubble too, he was having a career year, and unfortunately came up short with injury, if memory serves me right. So now it's a situation that you have them both healthy, and you now have the chance to really make something special happen here. And I do think that this is going to be an amazing series to watch, because you have the story of the Lakers, whether you love them or you hate them. It's still LeBron is at the final run, and obviously with what he's done, there's going to be a lot of media attention on him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can't deny that. But the big question is, can the Nuggets handle the spotlight and take it to them, because they are the better team on paper? But can they get in those playoffs, and can they really make an impact out the gate? Because
I don't think the spotlight is an issue at this point. They've been in the spotlight, although it be dim when it's on them, but they've been on the stage for the last 3 years now. I mean, they've come up short. I mean, they didn't have Murray for the last 2.
Right.
Murray's back and healthy. This is gonna go very differently. This is not gonna be any type of repeat at all. I don't see that happening. It's I don't know, man. I really feel like I said, the spotlight is Joker is just too damn cool, man.
Oh, no,
he doesn't. None of this affects him.
No, Joker.
Like he said when they were announcing the MVP, he was in the pool. Like he didn't even bother to look to see who won it.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not worried about Joker per se. It's the other teammates he has, and not saying that they're gonna crumble and fall, and like the pressure is there. But this is going to be a true test, because now with how many people are tuning in, and obviously it's a little different from the last time they met up. They're now at a healthy pace here, that there's no major injuries that we know of. And now you have a truly equal playing field. I mean, the only thing you have to question is Anthony Davis still in concussion protocol, or wherever the deal was there, how healthy he is. But that's not an asterisk on this series. It's going to be about, can the Nuggets finally embrace that spotlight? And like I say, it's not a sense of like, can they handle it? It's just, now you are that team. You are the projected winner of the West. Can you finish the story, so to speak?
Right, and plus the other thing too is, the first 2 games are in Denver, so that'll be key for them, because then you got to go into back-to-back games, one on Saturday, one on Monday, the 22nd, in Los Angeles, and I don't care what the name is, it's the Staples Center, into the Staples Center, which
Yeah.
Staples Center is a whole monster in and of itself on game day of the regular season. Staples Center in the postseason, in the conference finals, that crowd is something else. So I have no doubt that Jokic can handle it, but like you said, it's these other guys that are like, okay, you're on a big stage. You're going to be the only game in town on television for basketball. So every eye who's a diehard basketball fan is going to be on you, and it's going to be, you know, the Nuggets games are going to be loud and they're going to feed off of that crowd. Absolutely. But it's when you go into the hostile environment of enemy territory in the Staples Center on the road in prime time, because all the games are on 8:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. It's how do you handle that? Because it's one thing to play these, because like we said, this is a rematch of the 2020 bubble conference finals. So yeah, some of these guys have played each other before in the conference finals, but that was with virtual audiences and virtual sounds and all this other stuff. It's a whole different animal to do it with a live crowd of however the hell many people fit inside the Staples Center.
No, I fully agree.
Oh yeah, that's where home court advantage comes into play too, because it's just as hard to win in Denver this year.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, that's going to be a true enjoyable sight to see. The Denver crowd in this conference finals. That I know they're going to show up, and that stadium, that building is going to be rocking, and that's something I'm excited to see, because Denver has a very underrated fan base, in my opinion, when it comes to the NBA. And they're going to get up and they're going to get crazy for it. And this is going to be a situation, too, for the Lakers. They are going to have the media attention on them. And if they start faltering, how are they going to respond? And that's going to be the true test here going into this final, because from here on out, it's not going to be any easier whoever they face in the East. But this is going to be the true test of who's going to be the X factor, who's going to be the one to step up. And honestly, I think this is going to go 6. I could see it going 7. But I do got to say, I do like Denver.
For what it's worth, the series preview on ESPN.com has the series odds listed at Denver -155 and the Lakers are -135.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Lakers are going to get the benefit of the doubt because it's LeBron and company.
Right.
And like they say, but the more we're breaking it down, the more we're focusing on this. And plus, with Anthony Davis possibly not being 100%, because it's coming out of the Warriors series, I know he was a little worse for wear. That is something that, I mean, every team in these finals are going to be facing.
So nobody's 100%.
Exactly. So, I mean, you can't use that as an excuse. But if he's not fully able to, step his game up, that's going to be something for Denver to take full advantage of, and they should, because Denver is going to come in there, and I guarantee you, if they come out swinging from that first quarter, and let's say they get out to a 20-8 lead, something like that, that's going to be something to really set the pace for the rest of the game. And I think Jokic knows this. I think he's going to get that team ready. And I think this is going to be a true test for the Lakers too, because now going into that series against the Warriors, it swayed me a little bit, because I thought the Lakers might make this final run.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing how they were going in there, I think Denver just stepped up and really had something to prove.
Well, I think the thing with the Lakers too, getting through to this round against, because I know I said the Warriors, but I should have remembered, hey, LeBron's played the Steph Curry and those Warriors 900 times in the finals, so should have remembered that. But listen, this Denver team is just a different animal, and it's one thing to play them in the regular season, but playoffs, whole different animal.
Yeah, I agree with you. So how many games do you think, Pat? What are you calling?
I'm going to say Denver, and I'm going to say 7. I'm going to say it's going to take all 7, and Game 7 in Denver, yo.
Exactly. Brian, final thoughts on the conference final matchup in the West.
Denver's gonna do this in 5, boys.
5. Okay.
Yeah. Lakers can look good against Golden State, but I'm telling, like you said, this is a different monster. And even then, the Lakers barely looked good against Golden State. It had to go to 7. Both these teams barely crept their way into the playoffs. It's like I said, it's 2 lower seeds battling against each other. Obviously, there's just because of the names attached to these teams, it's gonna seem more like a powerhouse thing. But LA is not the powerhouse that they're portrayed to be. Denver is so much more than the media is giving them credit for. I'm telling you, Michael Porter Jr. is going to blast off tonight. He's going to light up for 20. and he's going to be the third highest scorer on the team. It's it's going to get nasty tonight, and they're going to deflate LA. I mean, they're not going to. LeBron is not going to be able to carry this team. AD does not always show up against Denver. There's no one else for LA to rely on. Our bench runs deeper. Our bench has proven that we can give our starters rest and still hold a lead and maintain a lead and extend a lead. LA can't do that. They don't have the same capabilities. This is two different power levels going up against each other. When beforehand and when Golden State and LA, it was two equally powered people or teams. This is going to be gross. This is going to be nasty. Sports Center is going to be losing their minds after tonight when Denver takes game 1 by 18.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I'm not doubting you. I mean, this is going to be a fun series regardless, and this is going to be one that I really think is going to kind of give a true test of what to expect for the NBA Finals. Because obviously, if Denver comes in swinging and especially has that chip on their shoulder, anybody they face from the East is going to be tough. If it's LeBron somehow sneaking it out, it's going to be a real test for his legacy because this is going to be the final run. I just think there's too much parity in the West right now to make a run at this stage at his age.
Right.
I think this is the window to do it. It's going to be a fun series to watch, so we definitely have to do that. Let's get a quick breakout, though, before we get into the Eastern Conference. So hashtag ODPH. Let us know your thoughts on the Western Conference Finals. Who you got, Denver or the Lakers, and why? Let's talk about it, shall we? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Together, we can make a difference. That's been the sign-off for everything Livestream for the Cure related ever since the event began back in 2017. Hello, everyone. My name is Nick, and I am the host of the Livestream for the Cure, an annual charity event to raise money for the Cancer Research Institute for immunotherapy research for a world immune to cancer. And over the past 6 years, we've made that difference together. Amazing listeners, amazing viewers, amazing podcast partners and content creators all coming together, and we've raised over $70,000. But this year, we're going to make our biggest difference to date, and we're going to raise $25,000 for the Cancer Research Institute. Tune into the event at twitch.tv/livestream for the cure starting May 18th, as we're joined again by podcast partners and content creators from around the world to help the Cancer Research Institute crush cancer. Together, we will make a difference.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the NBA version of the ODPH podcast with Brian Wayne from Cheers of Comics stopping by. Last segment, we talked about the Western Conference, and Brian, who'd you call for that one?
Well, I mean, Denver. Denver.
We just had
Three times that happens.
Yeah, we just had to remind everybody about that. So obviously, Denver and the Lakers are playing in the Western Conference Finals, but also in a rematch of the bubble season, we have the Eastern Conference Finals set up with the Miami Heat, the 8th seed, taking on the number 2 seed Boston Celtics. Miami got there with upsetting the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks, and then somehow, some way, they defeated those legendary New York Knicks 4-2, even though it was all Jalen Brunson and everybody else on that team decided not to show up in that Game 6, which I'm just going to say I'm excited for next season because we have draft picks and we have stuff to move. So I think we're going to be revitalizing that team.
All I'm going to say is Knicks fans in New York, do better.
No.
All the shit they've done and harassment they've given Julius Randle, which, hey, if you don't like the way he played, sure, I understand that, but some of the shit they've been saying,
okay, yeah,
do better.
Yeah, no, I will at least address this. Yeah, you don't have to like how he played, but the whole nonsense about like him going up to his wife after the game to talk to her and give her a kiss, like,
yeah,
that was above and beyond the call.
Yeah,
like, I'm sorry, and I agree with you, Pat. If you want to be mad about how he played, and trust me, I think I've been very vocal on this show about how disappointed I was in his play. That's one thing, but I'm not going to go after him about something like that. I'm sorry, like, that was above and beyond the call. And obviously the Knicks are going to be doing a lot of things. I know we had high hopes this season and it didn't pan out, but then again, I think we were also playing with house money because we were not expecting to get this far. Much like the Miami Heat, who are the 8th seed that decided to sneak in there. And obviously have a true test going against Boston, who defeated the Atlanta Hawks in the first round and then defeated Philadelphia. and the hot mess express that is that team right now.
Guys, I think it's time to no longer trust the process. The process has failed.
Yeah. Brian, do you have any thoughts on Philadelphia's current situation right now? Obviously, Doc Rivers was fired after their loss in Game 7.
Yeah, I'm still kind of digesting this. I'm surprised that Boston pulled it out. I thought that, to me there'd be no bigger story than Joker versus Embiid in the finals.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of surprised that didn't play out. So knowing now that there is probably going to be a slow implosion happening within that team, with Doc Rivers being gone. I don't know. I don't think we're going to be talking about the 76ers in the same capacity that we did this year, for sure. Next year, I just don't see that happening. At this point, I see him just getting disemboweled with Doc being gone, and Joel just not being not really living up to that MVP status.
Yeah.
It's I'm not one to sit back. I mean, I'm not enjoying it by any means. I don't know. I think there was more credit given to this team than deserved, and in the end, unfortunately someone and more than one person, but at least the head coach is losing their job over this, and it sucks. It really does, because I really feel like that would have been a much better. I think it would have been a better series to see Miami, or a better team to see Miami go against.
Mhm.
I don't think I don't think we'd be calling. I don't know. Foreshadowing my thoughts on the Boston Miami series. I don't think it's going to be very close. But I think that it would have just been a lot better to see, the 76ers go up against Miami. I feel like that's kind of more of an evenly matched series. And I don't know. I am bummed that this is going to happen with Philly, because I feel like that's kind of the team that I'd like to see, start rising in the East. It's I don't know. I'm still digesting all this, guys.
That's understandable.
It's understandable.
I feel bad for Philly fans, because it's been a rough few months for them. Because if you turn back the clock a little bit, the team made the World Series for the first time since they lost to who did they lose again to, Ken? 2009? Oh, right, the New York Yankees.
Wow. You went there.
I did. So they made it to the World Series for the first time since 2009, lost the World Series to Houston. And then you flash forward a little bit, and they made their soccer team, made it to the Major League Soccer Cup for the first time in the team's history. They lost that on penalty kicks, which, if you don't know penalty kicks, it's like the shootout in hockey. It's like the end all be all, like, hey, after this, there ain't no more game. So they lost the World Series. They lost the Major League Soccer Cup. Then you get to then their team made it to the Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl. Oh, by the way, then you get to the basketball team, which, hey, showing some promise. You got Joel Embiid winning MVP, James Harden, all this other stuff going on. They lost the conference finals for that.
Mm.
Oh, by the way, there's nothing good about the hockey team, because the hockey team didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So while I don't really care for Philly teams, I feel bad for the fans, because yikes, that's a rough stretch to run through. But in terms of the 76ers, listen, I think the only thing that might be sticking around is Embiid, because although, listen, we've seen wilder shit this offseason, but to me, trading or getting rid of a reigning MVP is what would be the wildest thing I've seen in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
No, they need to get rid of Harden.
There's talk Harden's out the door.
Yeah, Harden, I think, is already checked out.
Yeah.
That dude's toxic as hell.
Oh, yeah.
He's never going to win a championship.
He's lost a step. He's not as good as he used to be. Is he still serviceable? Yes.
Yeah.
He's still an all-star caliber player, but am I going to be a front office GM building my team around him? Absolutely not at this stage. But outside of Embiid, I think everybody's up for sale, and you're going to see that thing ripped down to the studs.
Well, I think what they need to do is reevaluate the process. I mean, it's been something that Philly fans have been used to hearing is trust the process. And they have taken steps in that right direction. But the problem is you can always get to the party. It's how you get home from the party is the big issue. And what always happens is they find themselves stranded in limbo.
I mean, they've been trusting the process for going on 10 years now.
Right.
Embiid drafted 2014.
Well, that's the whole thing, that you've had pieces there to get you over the hump, especially in the Eastern Conference, which, let's face it,
Is not loaded.
has not been loaded since LeBron was there with Cleveland.
Yes.
And the teams that he had there. After that point, it's been a wide open vacuum for somebody to just fill the space in.
I mean, how many times have we done this show in the 5-6 years we've been doing the show that, like, it's been one or two teams at the top that, like, okay, those are the contenders. Everybody else, well, just pick somebody.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been the top two seeds and then, well, thanks for showing up. Like, that's been the vibe in the Eastern Conference for many years, until this one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Where we've had more teams involved. Not saying it's been a top 8 real great teams.
Right. It's not like a whole 1 to 8 teams like, oh, any of these teams could legitimately make the NBA Finals, but it's like, no, hey, it's actually a bunch of contending games.
It's been more competitive. I mean, the Bucks, obviously with Giannis going down, being the number 1 seed,
Yeah.
that was going to be something. We said, too, the Cavaliers and the Knicks was going to be the best series of the first round, and it was for what it needed to be because both these teams were more equal than not. Philly ran through the Nets, which, I mean, let's face it, Brooklyn gets swept again in the first round.
The fact that Brooklyn even made it there with what they had lost, kudos to the head coach there.
Yeah, and then the Celtics. So right there, I mean, you had 5 of the 8 teams that were really contenders that could have made a deep run. And now to see where we're at, Philly had to go fire Doc Rivers. I mean, unfortunately, it's the nature of the business.
When you hire a guy of his caliber that, you know, had made the NBA Finals at least twice that I can remember with the Boston Celtics, you know, you bring him in there to get to the NBA Finals and win the NBA Finals. And
Well, but the thing is though, is he didn't get himself fired. Embiid got him fired for not showing up when he should have shown up.
yeah.
Harden got him fired for, well, being Harden in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the thing, is if you're going to trust the process, you like to think that, you know, the head coach is the head of that process. You know, you don't cut the head off. And I'm sorry, Embiid is not the head at this point. I mean, because he's not consistent. And I mean, Doc Rivers is, I mean, he's got a pretty consistent history in this league.
Yeah.
You know, I think his firing was just an idiotic move by Philadelphia when in the end it's really the team. Like, honestly, I maybe would look at trading Embiid, to be honest. I really would. There's a lot of value in him. And I'm not sure what the free agency is looking like this year, but he doesn't perform in the playoffs when it comes down to it. And I mean, it's not the rest of his team that underperformed. You know?
I mean, it's a tricky line to walk with Philly because you build players to make this into a franchise contender. And then it always falls on the head coach for whatever reason because they're supposed to be the ones to make things happen. And in this situation, there isn't. And I think the only reason that they did decide to fire Doc is they have an idea of who they want to go after. Because I think for the first time in recent memory, like I'd say within the past 5 years, there's a real deep, great talent pool for coaches.
Yeah.
And they want to go get somebody else and try revitalizing what they're trying to do. I think Doc will be fine because Doc will wind up somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And
he'll Detroit or someplace like that. And
I'll even make a bold statement. I think he winds up with the Knicks. I
like that.
I think the Tom Thibodeau era has a very, very short window, to be honest with you.
Well, that just depends on how James Dolan's record sales are doing.
Right. But that's a situation that I don't doubt seeing him go there, especially now that he's on the open market. It's a weird thing to say, but if somebody becomes available like that, and if a franchise is going like, that's my coach, they'll go get him. Whoever it is, they will make a point to do that. So, like I say, I don't doubt that something happens and Doc winds up in a very high-profile job next season. It all depends on what he wants to do, though. But I think in Philly's case, there's a lot of work to be done. And especially if you take a look at the two teams that are in the finals, you have to match up with them because I know Miami's seeding does not reflect that team, but they have been consistent all year if you watch them play.
Well, I mean, as we're talking about coaches and being underrated, Eric Spoelstra is a monster. Like, that dude is smart as hell. He's still young and sharp. Don't that man has the capability to outcoach anybody. So
he does not get the respect I think he deserves.
I agree with that.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. He is. I mean, I don't see how he's not a Hall of Famer. He's like I said, he outcoached New York. It's not just Jimmy Butler on this team.
Mm-hmm.
This is Eric Spoelstra's team more than anything. He has a winning history in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could take a team deep. He knows how to keep his team together under pressure. He's worked with veterans. He's worked with young teams, and he does just as well with either. No, I think Eric Spoelstra is the he's the wild card in this upcoming series. It's really going to come down to how much he wants this, because I think he has the capability to. I don't know, man. I don't think Boston is as good as their seed shows. I mean, think they started flaking towards the end, and Tatum he's a roller coaster. You never know what he's going to put up for you. And I mean, if your superstar is a roller coaster, that's a recipe for disaster in the conference finals, especially going up against an Eric Spoelstra-led team. So I don't know, man. I was kind of thinking, this is going to be kind of one-sided, but the more I weigh this out in my head, this could be a hell of a series.
I think if Boston wants to win this, they got to close this out early. And I'm not saying like a 4-game sweep,
right?
But like 5, 6, 5 at most 6. Because if this thing goes 7, I think you start leaning towards Miami, and Miami starts building up that head of steam, and that freight train starts coming down the hill. Because listen, you can't deny their talent. You can't deny what they've been able to do in the playoffs. They're, if memory serves, one of maybe 2, maybe 3 eighth seeds to make it this far in the playoffs, ever. And one of the other one, I think, being the New York Knicks, way back when.
Way back when, yeah.
Way back when. So, the fact that Miami's here is a testament to how good Eric Spoelstra is, how good that team is, and just how scrappy they are. That, like, listen, I think, like I said, I think if this goes 6, 7, 6, this is a toss-up. 7, I'm sorry, I'm leaning towards Miami, because Boston, as good as you are, you're the number 2 seed for a reason. You're currently favored by, according to ESPN's preview for the series, you're favored by 500, and Miami's a plus 380. You should be able to close this out relatively early. And like I said, I'm not saying sweep, but at least 5, maybe 6 if you're lucky. But if this goes 7, boy, you're giving Miami all the ammunition to make a comeback.
Well, I think it really just depends on a couple factors. I think it depends on what Miami can do to stop Jason Tatum. I mean, obviously, Game 7 against the 76ers, 51 points. I mean, what else can you say about that? But against a Miami team that is vastly underrated on their defense, somebody else on Boston is going to have to step up. And as we remember last year, Tatum had so much on his shoulders, he folded.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not faulting him, but it was a lot to really put on himself to try wielding that team to win a championship, and I know it just didn't come through in the late runs. And
I'm not confident that he's grown enough to do that, because, I mean, they ended up losing the 1 seed towards the end of the season. They had it, and then they lost it. I mean, I feel like when the pressure is on Boston and Tatum, it doesn't always work out in their favor. I am surprised that they ended up beating Philly, but like I said, I don't think it's so much as they beat Philly as Philly lost that series.
That's a great point.
I mean,
Philly had chances. I mean, that's
Philly collapsed worse than the Atlanta Falcons did.
Yep. I mean, it's sad but true, but that's the one problem. Boston shouldn't be here, but they are. Miami should not be here, but there's something that happens with Jimmy Butler when the playoffs hit. And he kicks into this weird extra gear that we don't see during the regular season. And he puts
up like Damian Lillard type of performances in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Man. Like he's consistent as hell.
Yeah.
He's scary. He is. He's scary.
Absolutely.
And he's so much scarier than Tatum because he doesn't have that consistency. He has the capability of putting up bigger numbers than Butler, but I mean, if you're to average out this series, I'd bet money that stats wise, Butler averages more in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of consistency, and I think I don't know, man. I kind of have a feeling that I'm changing my mind on this series. I think I'll base it off of tonight or the game one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if Boston comes out and just destroys their confidence, then I'm not sure about that. But even if Boston wins game one, if Miami can keep it close and win 2 games, the first 2 games at home, then I feel like this goes 7 and Eric Spoelstra outsmarts Boston's coach. It's escaping my brain.
Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, no, I think that's I mean, David versus Goliath as far as coaching matchups go.
Mm.
So I don't know, man. I think Miami might be overlooked at this point now. And just Tatum hasn't impressed me. I mean, he does at times, but I mean, if I were to, get on one of these sports book things and, bet on his performance, I wouldn't be betting on high numbers every time, just because, I don't have that kind of type of confidence in his ability to shine in the spotlight. And boy, is the spotlight on him now. This isn't the Western Conference semifinals anymore.
Yeah.
This is the Eastern. Sorry, this is the Eastern Conference Finals. This is to punch your ticket for your big chance. And I mean, it's a little bit bigger than round 2. A lot bigger.
So I decided. So for fun, I decided to look up Jimmy Butler's numbers. So his numbers in the regular season this year averaged 22.9 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, and 5.3 assists per game. For the postseason, thus far he has averaged 31.1 points per game, 5.4 assists per game, and 6.6 rebounds per game. So he's gone up in every major statistical category. The only thing, because ESPN lists points, rebounds, assists, and then field goal percentage, the only thing that has taken a hit for his offensive stats of the major 4 stats they list is his field goal percentage, because his field goal percentage in the regular season, 53.9%, field goal percentage in the postseason, 52.7. So no, you're absolutely right. There is some sort
he's
of
still shooting over 50%, which is monstrous.
Yeah.
Which
that tells me that he's getting to the lane and he's getting to the foul line.
Yep. But no, I think this is put up or shut up time for Boston, that like as long as this team has been in development and Tatum and Smart and everything else that's been going on with that rebuild process, since they traded away everything and Kyrie had his brief stint and whatever else, that like there's been talk of just how good this team can be and how far they can make a run, and it's put up or shut up time. That if it doesn't work out this year, you got to make some serious changes to that team because you're not going to get it done.
You have to implode them.
You have to. I don't know who you keep around, or if you just simply trade everybody and go the Oklahoma City route and have 14 first round draft picks over the next 4 years, but if you don't do it this year, you have to do something, and I'm not saying, you got to win the title, but you got to make the finals. I'm sorry, because with this roster makeup they've yet to make the NBA finals, and you have to, because that's every team's ultimate goal. And that's what you've been building this team toward. And it's nice. And to say have all these regular season accolades and all this other stuff and how good the team is, but if they don't win a title or make it to the finals, it don't mean shit. I think they've got the talent to do, but like I said, they've got to close it out early, because if you let it go 6-7, it's going to be all that much tougher, because Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra and everybody else on that Miami team and the bench is going to start building a head of steam, and it's going to be real hard to stop them.
Well, that's going to be the biggest thing, is if you give Miami any chance of hope, they're going to take full advantage of it. Miami is not supposed to be here. They understand this, but yet here we are. Jimmy Butler has kicked in that extra gear. But
talk about nothing to lose.
Yeah, like I say, they're literally the team that is playing with all the house money possible that you can think of. If there's
no media person that's going to chastise this team for losing this series.
No,
unless it goes to Game 7 and they're up 30 and lose it.
Yeah,
that is the only way this team gets criticized throughout this series. I mean, because like I said, no one's given them a shot. At the beginning of the podcast, I wasn't giving them a shot, and I changed my mind the more I talked about it. So yeah, absolutely nothing to lose. And you're out, and you're right. I mean, Boston doesn't make it to the finals this year. I mean, that's going to be a very different team next year.
They're going to be in a weird situation because they're built to win now, and they haven't. And you have to sit back and think, okay, what are we doing wrong? I mean, in a weird sense, it's much like Philadelphia. And that's kind of the crazy scenario of the elite of the East, is there's now time to make some drastic changes if you can't win now with what you have. Because the facts of the matter are this. Philadelphia should have been there. They're not. Boston should absolutely run away with this series. Will they? I don't think so. I think I've seen enough areas in Boston's game that this is going to go 2-7. I don't think they're going to close. I do think they're going to come out and get game one. I fully do. I think Miami is maybe just too emotionally drained from the game to close out the Knicks. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think what Miami is going to do, and I don't want to say like they're going to flop this game by any means, but I think they're going to wait to see Boston's best punch. And then I think they're going to make adjustments. I think Spoelstra is going to be smart enough to see what Mazzulla has it lined up for him and then adjust on the fly. But the biggest thing that I think Miami needs to find is somebody has to take the pressure off Jimmy Butler. And I'm going to call out Bam Adebayo. He has to have a big series here. He can't sit there and just kind of have fleeting moments. Like, he needs to have a consistent series where he is the solidified number 2 on this team. And he can't sit there and disappear in games, because I know Boston is going to load up on Jimmy Butler. So you're going to have him be the guy to do it. You can't rely on a Kevin Love, who I forgot was on this team.
I didn't even realize he was still in the league.
Yeah, like I say, just looking to think who's healthy, because obviously Tyler Hero is not playing in this series. He's still hurt. Victor Oladipo is still out. And you have those injuries. You need somebody to step up and do this. Miami has been lucky. They've had a couple people that have really done it. But at the same point, if you're going to beat Boston, you have to have consistency. I think they're going to do it, because I think what's going to happen is Boston is going to rely too much on Tatum. And I don't think that he has enough role players that can step up and fill that gap consistently. Like, that's going to be my word of the series, consistency. Because whichever team shows up more for this series, and like I say, we don't have these magical come from behinds. Like with Miami being down 14 to the Knicks just were feeling themselves too much that they took the foot off the gas pedal. Boston might do the same thing here, because they're going to just rely too much on Tatum. And then if you're expecting Brown or Smart, they're going to have to step up. They're really going to have to be the consistent counterparts here. I don't know if they can, because quite frankly, I haven't seen them do it before in these playoffs. It's always been on Jason Tatum, and that's where he makes mistakes. And if you do that against a team coached by Spoelstra and led by Jimmy Butler, you're not going to survive. I'm sorry. In 7.
I like it. I like it. I agree with that. I absolutely do. I 100% agree with everything that you just said. Um, yeah, and you know that Boston is going to plan for, Tatum to be double teamed throughout this entire series. So it's just a matter of how well they handle it.
Hmm.
I mean, are they going to be able to create the angles for him? Is he going to be able to handle that pressure? Because I mean, it's so much more in the spotlight. He's gonna have two big bodies on him this entire series, and well, I don't know, man. He's got his work cut out for him. It's up to the other four. It really is. And I just I don't see them performing the way that the Boston fan base is gonna or desires. I just don't see it happening. Miami in 7 for sure.
I'm going to say Boston in 6.
Ooh, Pad's going against the grain.
I'm going to go 6.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the one thing about this series is it's not going to get the highlights that Denver and the Lakers are going to get. It isn't. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's still going to be a great series to watch as a fan because you really have a David versus Goliath story going on here. And especially with Miami, there really is nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, hypothetically, if they get swept and, like, let's say they get blown out by 30 every game, okay, that might be a different story. I don't think that's going to happen here. I mean, I could see Celtics winning this one outright too. But in my gut of guts, I think that Miami is just going to go in and say, hey, we weren't supposed to beat the Bucks. Here we are. We weren't supposed to beat the Knicks. Here we are. Why not do it again? And then that'll make for an interesting finals matchup.
I mean, that's a fun story, I mean, it's a story that no one saw coming, and I mean, this ain't no Spider-Man 27.
This is very true.
Oh man, no, I think it'd be a lot of fun. Would it surprise me if Boston stomped Miami? No, it wouldn't. But I don't see that happening, though. I really don't. I feel like this is going to be an incredible series. The entire playoffs have been incredible series. There's been, well, I mean, Nuggets, well, they swept round 1, right? And then, yeah, well, that wasn't all that exciting. But for the most part,
well, Minnesota got a game. They got one game.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they did. Yeah, that's right. But I mean, why not keep that excitement going? I mean, that's a fun story to play out in the East. Miami rising from an 8th seed, coming in off this play-in. They got in on the play-in, right?
Yep.
That's how you get on it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people against the play-in, but and I was kind of against the play-in too. But if I could see a play-in team make it to the finals. Not make it to the Eastern Conference, not the conference finals, the finals. Then I may rethink my opinion on this whole play-in thing. Man, I don't know. I'm pulling for Miami. I really am. Mostly because, well, they're just playing to see who loses to Denver. This is all this is coming down to. I don't think either team in the East really stands a shot, and I'm not really saying this in bias. It's Miami nor Boston stand no chance against either of these teams in the West. I don't see it happening. Yeah, no, I mean even. I mean, if something silly happened, and if it is Boston versus LA, I got a little sick to my stomach saying that out loud.
Yeah, I know. I fear that'd be too Hollywood. Like, I mean, you have to kind of just say, like, it could happen, sure. But I think it all really just depends on looking at all 4 of these teams, and especially the roads, how they got there. With Denver just really dominating and only losing 3 games in both series against Phoenix and Minnesota. The Lakers had a little different story because, obviously, with the drama going on with Memphis, they wind up winning their games in 6, and then they're in another 6-game series against the Warriors. They're not exactly looking like a dominant team per se, But I think what we're seeing here is you're seeing teams rise up to the occasions. And I think you're seeing this in both conferences. And it just depends on what team is going to be more elite. I think Denver is definitely showing that they are ready for the moment because they're healthy. And this is the first time we've really seen them healthy throughout this entire playoffs, to kind of sum everything up here. We've seen the Lakers now just relying on their veteran leadership to get them this far, but how far can that take them? And then on the East, you have a team that literally is playing with nothing to lose in Miami, and to a team that has shown flashes of brilliance, but it's also blink and miss it too with Boston. There's so much going on with both storylines, and it's going back to the bubble tourney that now we get to see it in front of crowds. Now we get to see that energy from all fan bases come alive for it. This is truly going to be something special to watch moving forward.
It is. This is a great year to tune into the playoffs. That's for sure. The best in at least a half a decade. Because it is. It's none of this is really going according to plan. I mean, even with Denver going in with the 1 seed, there were still people thinking they weren't going to get past the second round.
Yeah.
I mean, not giving us a chance against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But here we are. So like I said, this is not going according to plan at all. So I would like to see this stay consistent, and I would like to see King James be dethroned, and an 8th seed making it in on a play-in, taking down a 2 seed who really stood at the top of the conference for 90% of the season.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun time to tune in. It's going to be a great couple of weeks for sure. It really is. This is going to be good basketball to watch, regardless. Because I mean, these are fun stories, even if they weren't drawn up the way they might have been planned, or go the way they were drawn up. But fun stuff. Either way, no matter the outcome, it's gonna be, you're gonna want to tune into the finals. It's gonna be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
Absolutely. Pad, final thoughts on the playoffs?
Playoffs have been really good. Should be interesting to see who comes out of the finals. Should be some of the best basketball we've seen in a couple of years. And as for the finals, well, that'll just be even better.
I couldn't agree with both of you guys more. This is going to be a fun playoffs to watch. Like I say, for finals, the NBA is back as far as the drama is there. There's some great compelling matchups going on. And listen, coming out of the Eastern Conference, that's going to be a very slept-on series, but it's still going to be one to watch. So like we always say, hit us up on that hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts about the Eastern Conference Finals? Who you got, the Heat or the Celtics? And then who you got winning the whole thing? Let's talk about it, shall we? But we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Do not adjust your dial. Or, well, your phone, your watch, or whatever the heck you're using to listen to the awesome podcast you're currently listening to. I am the Duke of Nerds, Tyler Mack, and I am here to tell you that being a nerd can be a bit overwhelming, especially after 30. Life moves pretty fast in our nerd culture, and if you don't take the time to notice things, you miss out. That's why I'm here. As your Duke of Nerds, I am charged with educating, enlightening, and entertaining you on all things nerdy. I do it by running the 30 to Nerdy podcast. 30 to Nerdy is a Badcast Company production and currently playing wherever you cast your pod. Follow along each episode using the hashtag 30andNerdyPod. And check out what all is going on at 30andNerdyPodcast.com. Whether it's DC, Marvel, comics, or video games, I have got you covered. So tune in now. Cheers to you, nerds.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast with special guest Brian Wayne from the Cheers to Comics podcast in the house. So we are talking a lot of NBA, but there are also a couple more stories that we definitely want to go cover, and especially we alluded to one in last segment. that the coaching carousel has begun with a few coaches losing their job, unfortunately. So, Pat, you got the list of who's on the unemployment line?
Yeah, so the one we already mentioned last time, we just got to bear repeating, is Doc Rivers, who was dismissed as head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers today as we record. Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN has listed on the article on ESPN.com. Their head coaching search for the 76ers is expected to include Mike Budenholzer, Sam Cassell, Mike D'Antoni, Nick Nurse, Frank Vogel, and Monty Williams. So definitely keep an eye out on those. But some of the other head coaches let go, and this list is coming to me courtesy of the folks over at NBA.com. First off, you had Dwayne Casey, who was the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. Some of his notable stuff: he was an NCAA champion as a player, NIT champion as a player in college, won an NBA championship in 2011 with the Dallas Mavericks as an assistant coach, was NBA Coach of the Year in 2018, with the Toronto Raptors. He was let go. Well, wasn't let go. He stepped down as coach and took a front office role with the team. With the Houston Rockets, you had Steven Silas, who was they passed on returning him as a head coach. So they're going to be looking for a new head coach. They have hired Ime Udoka, who was the former Celtics head coach. We had that whole mess going on. You had Mike Budenholzer, who was with the Milwaukee Bucks, was fired after 5 seasons on the job. He, of course, won the championship with the Milwaukee Bucks in 2021, 2-time NBA Coach of the Year in 2015 and 2019, and then he was a 4-time NBA champion as an assistant coach, winning in 1999, 2003, 2005, and then 2007. And then also you had, we mentioned Doc Rivers with Philadelphia 76ers. Then you got Monty Williams, who was out with the Phoenix Suns. Of course, Monty Williams, NBA Coach of the Year in 2022. Then was the All-Star Game head coach this past year in 2022. So they're going to be looking for something new out there. And then lastly, and certainly not leastly, Nick Nurse with the Toronto Raptors parted ways with the team. He coached the Toronto Raptors to a championship in 2019, was an NBA Coach of the Year in 2020, 2-time NBA D-League champion, won a whole bunch of other foreign championships and such, but a lot of notable former Coach of the Year candidates now looking for a job, which I know Eric Spoelstra has said is surprised that so many head coaches with a lot of great resumes are now out of a job.
Yeah, Brian, your thoughts on this?
Like I said, I think it's unfortunate to see so many coaches that have, such reputations be the first to let go. When players get coaches fired. I'm not saying all of them. None of them deserve what they didn't have it coming to them or whatever. But at the same time, the first one to be blamed is always the head coach. And, there's only so much you could do when you're in a high pressure playoff situation. If you have a star underperforming, then, and you sit him and you still lose, then, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's a double-edged sword. In that situation. And it's unfortunate that a lot of these coaches, ended up, they're on the hunt now. But I fear not for them. Like I said, they're all more than capable of landing a good gig elsewhere. It's these front office people, I think, that they need to start doing regime changes on. It's it's silly, I don't know. I feel like these franchises, they want to say trust the process, but like I said, it starts with the head coach, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing with it is obviously you can't move players faster than you can move coaches. And it's a shame that it falls on them. But at the same time, like this year seems more perplexing than most because the job Monty Williams did out in Phoenix and really made them a contender. And you were given Kevin Durant as, the final piece to the puzzle, so to speak, and it didn't pan out. Like, I was more surprised at that. I was surprised at Milwaukee's head coach getting fired, too.
Yeah, that was real surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one out of the list I mentioned, Dwayne Casey, Steven Silas, Mike Budenholzer, Doc Rivers, Monty Williams, and Nick Nurse. The only two that really didn't surprise me is like, okay, Dwayne Casey,
Yeah, that didn't surprise me.
He stepped down and going front. That doesn't surprise me. Houston getting rid of their head coach. Okay, that didn't surprise me at all. The rest of them did, because these are all guys that, like, okay, Doc Rivers, won an NBA championship. His record speaks for itself. But like the Milwaukee Bucks head coach, the dude literally just won you an NBA title like the year prior, a couple years ago. Monty Williams, got you to helped get the team to the NBA finals like the year prior. Phoenix, should they have gone further in the playoffs? Sure, but I think the other thing we got to remember too is Kevin Durant was not with that team very long. Mm-hmm. I looked it up. He played maybe like 15, 20, not even 15 games with them. So jury, in my opinion, is out, because I mean, look at when LeBron, Wade, and Bosh all joined together, how off they were the first couple of months they were playing together. But then you look at some of the other ones, like I mentioned. Okay, so the Milwaukee one surprised me, Rivers surprised me, Phoenix, Nick Nurse. I mean, again, did they have an off year? Sure, but like, what the hell? Like they were just won a title a couple years ago. Coach of the year. Like, a lot of these feel knee-jerk reactionary to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, for me, it came across as hitting the panic button too soon.
Yeah.
And it was, unless they have somebody lined up in mind, like, a lot of these were just real puzzling, because it wasn't like your team was in disarray. Like, the Philadelphia situation, I can kind of understand.
Sure.
But that's because the expectations are very high, and rightfully so. But in a situation like Phoenix, that's a little puzzling. And then Milwaukee even more so, unless what I'm fearing, and I know I'm going to hear this from Milwaukee fans, is they're planning on imploding that team. Like, they hit their stretch run, cap issue is going to be a deal. Like, there's going to be some changes happening anyway. So it's very interesting to see how this all shakes up. And obviously, we hope that everybody, finds a landing spot somewhere. Because, like I say, this is a very talented pool of coaches. And you can never have enough talent guiding your team into, the regular season and postseason and beyond. Like, so I imagine we'll hear about a lot of these signings after the season is done.
Yeah.
But it's just, like I say, that list coming out is very, very shocking.
Looked it up, just for the record. Kevin Durant played 8 games in the regular season with the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. So it's
that's not enough time I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Michael Jordan in his prime. That is not enough time to build a repertoire with the team and like know the ins and the outs and what the guys are going to do.
Yeah. And then the last thing that we had NBA-wise, and I know, Brian, you reached out. You definitely said you wanted to talk about this along with the playoffs. I've had other listeners hit us up and actually say, what's your thoughts on this? The situation involving Ja Morant down in Memphis.
Yay.
So, Pat, you got the information on that?
Yeah, so I'm reading from an article on ESPN.com where the headline reads, Ja Morant suspended after video shows Grizzlies star with gun. And the article is written by Tim McMahon, who is a staff writer for ESPN. The article reads, quote, the Memphis Grizzlies have suspended Ja Morant from all team activities after a video showing the star holding a gun began circulating on social media Saturday night. The Grizzlies announced the suspension, which is pending a league review, in a statement Sunday, 2 months after the NBA suspended Morant over a similar incident. The team did not provide further comment. Quote, we are aware of the social media post involving Ja Morant and are in the process of gathering more information, NBA spokesperson Mike Bass said in a statement Sunday. On Saturday, during an Instagram live session on Morant's friend Devontae Pack's account, the All-Star flashed a handgun while driving and singing along with a rap song. The video has since been deleted. Morant left the Grizzlies and entered a counseling program in March after a video showed him holding a gun while intoxicated at a Denver nightclub when the Grizzlies were in town to play the Nuggets. He was eventually suspended 8 games after meeting with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who called Morant's conduct irresponsible, reckless, and potentially very dangerous. At the time of the suspension, Morant told ESPN in an interview that he realizes what I have to lose and said he would try to be more responsible, more smarter, and staying away from all the bad decisions. Morant has been involved in several off-court incidents over the past year. He is being sued by a high school prospect after a fight during a pickup game in Morant's backyard, where Morant and Pack are alleged to have punched the boy in the head. The teenager told police that Morant entered his house after the fight and came back outside with a gun in his waistband. Pack was banned from attending games at Memphis's FedEx Forum after a post-game confrontation with the Pacers traveling party. Pack was escorted out of his courtside seat after stepping onto the floor during the game to confront Pacers players. After the game, following an argument between Morant's associates and members of the Pacers traveling party in the arena's loading dock area, a red laser was pointed from an SUV in which Morant was riding. An NBA investigation, quote, could not corroborate any individual threatened others with a weapon, close quote. In the wake of the Grizzlies' first-round playoff elimination, Morant said he needed to be more disciplined. Quote, I've just got to be better with my decision-making, he said after a 125-85 loss to the Lakers on April 28th. That's pretty much it. Off-the-court issues affected us as an organization pretty much. Just need more discipline, close quote. Morant's 5-year, $194 million max contract is set to begin this coming season. It could have escalated to Supermax if he had made All-NBA this season. He was not voted onto that team, which could cost him about $39 million in future earnings. He has endorsement deals with Nike, Powerade, though the sports drink company pulled an ad featuring Morant almost immediately after the March video emerged. A Powerade spokesperson told ESPN's Michelle Steele on Monday, quote, at this time, we do not have any jaw-related content running, close quote. Morant averaged 26.2 points this season and helped Memphis secure the number 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs, close quote.
Brian, your thoughts?
Well, he wanted to be more smarter, and this is where it got him. Sorry, I love that quote that he said. I'm gonna try to be more smarter, and yeah, here he is, just smart as can be. He needs an 81 game suspension. He needs to be banned from all league activities. He's going to get somebody killed at a game. This is what's going to happen. He already has his wannabe friends showing up, getting thrown out of games, being banned from arenas. I'm sorry, like you talk a big game and you stand in that type of light. There's always somebody bigger, badder, and realer than you. Mm-hmm. And this is going to trickle into real life. This is not just happening on Instagram. This is going to happen, and something terrible is going to happen at one of these games live if he continues to be allowed around this league until he's actually shown that he's had more than 11 days worth of rehab so he can get more smarter. This guy is absolutely toxic to the NBA. You know, people compare him to Ron Artest. I'm sorry. Punching a fan is nothing compared to gang affiliation, and then having those same, gang member friends show up and then start shit at games. That is a problem. That is, I mean, a potentially fatal problem. And I mean, this world is crazier than it has ever been before. And I mean, to think that this moron, I don't even know if I can call him Morant anymore, John Moron, is continuing to be this stupid and surround himself with these leeches for affiliates and entourage. It is absolutely ridiculous. This boy needs to grow the hell up. I don't know.
Pat, what's your takes on this here before I get going?
He needs help. Because and he needs something needs to happen from the NBA, because the joke of a suspension he was given earlier this year clearly did nothing, and it looks like the breathing exercises he got aren't helping. Because I'm sorry, the first incident is, once is a mistake, two is a pattern. You know, the first incident, he got suspended for 8 games, had a counseling session and an interview with ESPN, which, hey, if anybody deserves credit in this situation, it's whoever he has for PR, because they managed to skirt any sort of accountability with him and got him right back in the league with basically what was equivalent to load management. You know, and clearly nothing has changed, because if something would have changed, this wouldn't happen again. You know, so he needs something needs to happen, and he needs to get, you know, I don't want to say scared straight, but like something needs to shock the system that, like, hey, it's a privilege for you to be here. It's an honor for you to be here, but you need to toe the line and you need to do what's right. And flashing a gun around in public is not a right thing. I realize there are states that have different laws about what you can and can't do with a gun and licenses and whatever else. Doesn't matter. You're in the NBA, which is a private entity. It is not a publicly traded company. They have, states have different laws. You can go from the state of Texas to the state of New York or whatever other state you want to pick, and there's different laws for the way they handle guns. But the NBA's got its own set of rules and laws. And it don't matter what the state laws say. If the NBA's got a certain set of laws, you can't do something, you got to toe that line. I don't know what the suspension should be. I'm going to leave that up to the NBA and what they decide to do, because this is, to me, is going to be precedent setting, but they need to set a precedent like, hey, we're not going to tolerate this. This is not okay. You're supposed to be an example for your community and for all the kids that look up to you. I mean, I can't speak for jersey sales, but I'm willing to bet he's pretty high in the jersey sales numbers, you know, and clearly he needs to get a new set of friends, because the article I mentioned, it didn't speak about his entire entourage. It just spoke about this one individual who's been at the center of 3 different incidents for this guy. You had the backyard incident with the high school player. You had when the Indiana Pacers were leaving the arena and a laser pointer was flashed. What it was attached to, Lord only knows, if it was attached to anything. And then you have this incident now with them in the car listening to the song.
Guess whose Instagram's blowing up?
His. This is not the type of crowd you need.
Exactly. He's got leeches for friends. He's got instigators that are clearly putting them in these situations. And even if, like I said, he's clearly a moron. This is the 4th time now that he's had some sort of gun accusation, or at least 3.
Yeah.
He's not seeing any common denominators. The man needs to be separated from everything he's doing. He needs to take a $60 million hit this year. He needs to take the $30 million in endorsements between Powerade and Nike. He needs to not make that money. He needs to take, like the 30-some million on this year's contract?
Something.
He needs to not make that money. And then let's see who his friends are when he doesn't have the $60 million that they were all counting on this year. The kid needs his eyes opened. I really do have sympathy for him, because I understand what it's like to be young. I don't know what it's like to be young and rich, but I understand what it's like to be young and have people rely on you at the same time. I get that. And sometimes, you allow the wrong people, around. I understand. And for that, I empathize for. But 4 times now, you don't. Come on, man.
The only thing that scares me with this, and this is only because I'm going through and I'm binge watching Dark Side of the Ring from Vice to catch up for the season upcoming, is we saw what happened with Gorgeous George.
Yeah.
When he got caught in with the wrong crowd. And I'm not saying I wish anything on Ja Morant, and I'm not sitting here saying something's going to happen with Ja Morant. But you look at what happens with folks when they have money and they have influence and they have connections and they can get you in places. When they run in with the wrong crowd and they don't realize it till it's too late.
This is the one problem that you have when you bring this energy upon yourself, and that's what he's unfortunately doing. This is now the 3rd incident involving brandishing a weapon, and you're caught out there on social media doing it. Let alone you have the fight with the high school prospect with your quote-unquote friend that, during a pickup game. There's a pattern of behavior that's troubling. And that's the key thing that's going on here. And if I'm the Memphis Grizzlies and I am paying him, and Pat, I want to make sure I heard this correctly. He's on a 5-year, $195 million contract.
194, and it kicks in this year.
So 194, and that's supposed to kick in.
It kicks in this coming season.
Okay. So if I am paying him this money as an investment to my organization, and I'm seeing this pattern of behavior, it's not a one-time incident, unfortunately, I am very, very concerned. For one, his well-being.
Yeah.
And two, my business well-being. And that's the way it should be. And I think, unfortunately, he needs to learn the hard way with a very, and I love how you brought it up, Pad, this is going to be a precedent-standing decision of a suspension. And he's going to need this. And I know the Grizzlies had suspended him from current team activities. Well, it's the off season, so it doesn't really mean a whole hell of a lot. They're going to have to really do something to set a precedent for not only their players, but players around the league. Because unfortunately, with this nonsense happening, he's drawing a lot of attention to himself and not the right people and not the right reasons. And I'm sorry, this is facts. That he is going to get himself into a situation if he keeps this kind of behavior up, and it's not going to end very, very well. And I'm not wishing this on him by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, no, it's already happened is the problem.
Yeah, and that's the thing is somebody needs to get a hold of him and really have a sit down and drive this point home to him. Because whether it's going to be Adam Silver, who is going to say, you're suspended the year because we don't want your drama coming to our games with our fans and people watching around the league and seeing this type of behavior, and we're saying this is okay. Like, it's one thing what you do in your off time, but when you are representing the league, and this is where he is because this is what he does as a job, that he is known as a National Basketball Association player. They have a standard of conduct. It comes with their contracts. And if he is violating this, and when you have the commissioner saying, quote, irresponsible, reckless, and potentially very dangerous, end quote, that's the problem. That they understand that this kind of behavior is going to be detrimental for all parties involved, but more importantly, his. And I think that it's going to take a suspension of a full season to knock that through his head. And then he is going to have to make that decision. Is it more important to hang out with my quote-unquote friends and portray this image, or do I want to get back to winning games and being a teammate and being someone that can be trusted with the position and the money that they're given? That's the ultimate deal here. And it's sad to say that this is now a multiple incident. Like, that's the most bizarre thing that I think I involve in this story.
And it's not over a set number of years. It's over like a year.
Yeah.
I know. Seriously, I thought, like, when I read the article, I was like, are we still talking about this? And I was like, wait a second. That's a different picture.
Yeah.
That's not at Shotgun Willie's. You know, it's... yeah. I got sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I thought the last thing he did was absolutely ridiculously dumb. But at this point, I mean, this poor kid's being set up. This is what's happening. I mean, I feel like, I mean, I don't want to put on tinfoil hats or anything, but I feel like there's somebody profiting from his demise at this point. Because it's just too perfect that these things keep happening to him. Too unfortunately perfect. And I don't know. Yes, I mean, he's clearly aware that he's on camera waving a gun around. I'm not saying that he's 100% innocent in all of this.
Right.
But to some extent, he is a victim as well. Like, he is being manipulated into these situations. And whether it's him trying to show out in front of his friends, you know, on the court, you know, try to be tough, you know, earn stripes, whatever it is he's trying to do. Show that he's a rebel against the NBA's rules. I don't know. But I mean, you would think that the poor kid would have somebody around him in his circles saying, "Hey, man, like you probably shouldn't do that again." But it's unfortunate that that he's just he gets off that video, and then all of a sudden his boy goes, "Bro, you just got me another 30,000 followers," and then they're all celebrating. Not thinking about the repercussions because they're on this high of like what he just did for his. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to put myself in that situation, and
that's the only thing. That's the only thing you can do is speculate like the reasons why, and they all don't add up to anything. It doesn't make sense.
As somebody who made a lot of dumb decisions as a teenager growing up, and nothing nearly to this level is flashing weapons around on social media when I'm a multi-million-dollar star. But like, I certainly made my fair share of stupid decisions over the years. In the moment when I had people, including family and friends, look at me like, "Yo, you're not doing the right thing. You're kind of making an idiot of yourself. You're not what you need to do." I did not see the wrongs I was doing until I was on the other side, out of that little troubled period in my life, and now I look back and go, holy shit, I was a dumbass.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think this is where he is, that he might, and we don't know, he might have people in his life, relatives, family members, high school friends, whatever, telling him like, "Hey, you're screwing up your dream. You're screwing up, your meal ticket here." And just unfortunately, he's in that part of his life where like he's having fun and he thinks it's what he wants and he thinks this is great, but he doesn't realize the consequences that can come as a result of these actions.
Yeah, and that's the thing that he's going to have to learn the hard way. And go, Brian.
Yeah, his whole thing is, he's got people relying on him, and all these people rely on him. Well, what's he going to do when these people get him to a point where he doesn't have that ability for them to rely on him? Because I'm telling you, like I really believe that this stunt could get him at least 50 games. And that's a big hit, man. And I don't see him being endorsed for anything ever again.
Well, I think what you're gonna see happen is, however Memphis goes about this, and sure they suspend him from all team activities currently. I think once we see it, one of two things is going to happen. He's either going to show growth and change, and I think we're all hoping this is the case, or if there's another incident involving, because we don't know what the league is doing. We just know they're reviewing the situations that happen, correct?
Correct.
So depending on how they want to come down, but I will guarantee you this, the fact they gave him a warning and he didn't listen, they're going to drop the gavel on him. I think this is... And
it's not like it was a couple years later.
Right.
We're talking about
2 months.
Weeks later.
This is 2 months.
Yeah.
So after they tried sending the message and suspending him, and they cost him from a Supermax contract, you figured that would be enough. It's not. So now, if the Grizzlies don't do it, I am guaranteeing you want to do locks and leaps, I'm going to say this is probably the safest lock of all. Adam Silver is going to drop a massive suspension on him for the regular season. And I'm not doubting it's going to be 81 games. Because what he's going to say is, if Memphis doesn't do something like deactivate him or however they want to do it in the legality of the contract, he's going to. Because he understands what could happen if he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And if Morant gets another slap on the wrist, because obviously the first time, this is how it's coming across now, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 8 games.
Yeah. He's now going to say, you didn't learn the first time. You've now embarrassed it and just basically laughed in my face. I'm going to send you a message. And I'm going to send this to the rest of the league. That this type of behavior is not going to be tolerated if you're going to be playing in the NBA.
I'll say at a time when a lot more eyes are on the NBA than normal, with the playoffs going on and the finals
Yeah.
coming up. What's everyone's lead story about the NBA been the last couple of days? Not the Denver Nuggets, the Lakers preview, not the Heat Celtics preview. It's Ja Morant and what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And that's his narrative that he's got to figure out. I'm hoping he does put it together. I really am. I'm not saying.
Oh, I do too.
And I know that there was some online chatter like he should be arrested and and all that bullshit. No, but what he needs to do is figure out: does he want to be a wannabe Instagram star with the behavior he's portraying, or does he want to play basketball and win championships? And he has to figure out what's worth more. The quote-unquote friends I have to support when I'm being encouraged with this behavior, or do I have to worry about myself? Because he's now going down a very, very slippery slope. And if he can pull himself out, all the better. If he can't, I fear we're going to be hearing worse about this before it's all said and done.
No, I don't. I want to see him get suspended for the year, not because I want to see him get suspended for the year, but because I know it'd be the best thing for him.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is he needs to spend that year in Europe or something, completely away from everything, away from all of his people, all of that. Just spend a year in Europe, not making your contract, not getting endorsed, and just figure yourself out, man.
Mm-hmm.
No,
that's all I just want to. I mean, I hate that he's in the West.
Yeah,
I do. He's nipping at Denver's heels all season with that 2 seed. But at the same time, I mean, the kid's a superstar, and I want to see him be great. I do. But at the same time, I don't have a lot of empathy for stupidity. And boy, is it hard to be he's been so stupid. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's not going to take anything less than extremely drastic to be able to help his situation. And I don't wish ill upon him, but at the same time, if something unfortunate doesn't happen to him, then it's just going to get worse.
No,
so,
he listen, I hope he gets the help he needs, because clearly something's going on and it's not okay. The NBA will figure out what it needs to be, but it needs to be a lengthy suspension, because I'm sorry, 8 games, because I believe that's what it was the first time around, was about 8 games. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that's not a suspension. That's not anything that's going to teach him.
He spent that time down in Miami.
Yeah, that's
just chilling in Florida.
That's not
learning how to breathe. Come on, man.
Yeah, that's not a punishment. That's not anything that's going to teach a lesson. The lesson to somebody. It's like if you got a kid and he throws a temper tantrum playing Xbox or PlayStation, you go, "Oh, that's it. Go to your room." But if the kid's got a Nintendo Switch in his room, well, that don't mean shit. He's not learning anything. You're just taking away one thing so he can go play another thing. Suspending him for 8 games or whatever it was, that's not going to teach him a lesson. That's essentially another all-star break.
Yeah.
That's a vacation.
That's a vacation. He's not going to learn anything. But if you take away the game he loves, hopefully, for a whatever it is, a half a season, full season, somewhere in between, that'll send a message that, like, hey, this is not okay, and you cannot do this. And like I said, I hope he gets the help he needs, because this is not right. This is not okay. It's just not.
No, it definitely isn't. And this is where the Grizzlies are going to have to set the bar and say, us as a franchise, we're not going to tolerate this. If they don't, mark my words, quote this, Adam Silver will. Because
100%.
Yeah, there is no chance this goes past him. Especially,
he will not be allowed to be made out to look stupid.
Yeah,
and the whole, we had a intimate and deep conversation. For him to just come out and pretty much spit on the shoes of Adam Silver after that whole proclamation, no. Silver is pissed right now.
Oh yeah,
he is pissed. And I wouldn't be surprised if he handed out the biggest suspension the NBA's ever seen,
Yeah.
just as a way to show, look, we have plenty of other superstars that don't make the game dangerous to attend. I mean, there's no way as a Denver fan I would ever go to a Nuggets game that the Memphis Grizzlies were, playing, just because at this point, like I mean, the dude's dangerous.
Yeah.
Maybe not him himself, but it's the last thing anybody else needs is to fear for their life going to a basketball game,
Yeah.
because you don't know what type of energy this guy's going to bring in, what type of heat and smoke he's going to draw up.
Yeah.
No, he needs to spend away from this country. Maybe get some appreciation as to maybe some other countries' gun laws that are a little more strict.
He just needs somebody to just really clear his head and just really have that sit down conversation. Like, that's all it's going to take, because if he's not willing to do it himself, like, somebody's going to have to do it for him, because otherwise the pattern of behavior right here is alarming enough. And there's no way, as a business, as a franchise, I mean, we have seen advertisers and sponsors back away from players for less stuff. And if you're comparing apples and oranges, so to speak, what do you think is going to be the ramifications here? And I think this is something
he will never ever be endorsed ever again.
Yeah, like, I think that he's going to have to really work on rebuilding his image and his relationships, and really win over the public. And he's got a long road ahead of him. And just unfortunately, whatever the fallout's going to be, and I guarantee you we'll hear about it after the finals, because I don't think they're going to say anything during the games, because why take the spotlight away from the games?
Mm-hmm.
And I think with Memphis doing what they're doing now, I think they're just buying time for it. But I think that you're going to see them, drop something probably a week after the finals. They're done. And then that's the precedent that's going to be set forward. I'm just hoping he learns from this, and he's able to grow from this, and he's able to move on from this, because that's going to be the biggest
I just
thing.
think it's bullshit that it's taking away from the finals. Like, he's not even in the damn league anymore, and he can't help but want to be talked about, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not your turn anymore, man. Like, let the Nuggets win this shit. Shut up. Enjoy your extended off season. And but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
unfortunate.
It's an unfortunate situation, and like I say, he should be learning from the mistakes of others that he hasn't learned yet, and he's going to have to find out the hard way.
And I mean, we learned from the last incident. There's no lack of other celebrities that has been in his position that have spoken with him. So I mean, the talk with Adam Silver didn't work. All of the other sports figures out there that have been in his shoes, getting on all these media outlets, giving their testimony. No. Not hearing a damn thing. And that's what worries me about the situation, is it makes me wonder if, at this age, he's even capable of turning it around at this point. Because if you're not getting it from these people, I mean, this is, like I said, you're not even playing right now, and you're still the most talked about thing. I mean, if that's not enough to wake you up, then is it too late? I mean, I don't know. I mean, age and growth is a lot, but at the same time, he's on a dangerous road. Like, this isn't this isn't a just anything. We're talking about gun violence and gang violence and stuff like that. And I mean, this gets people killed.
Yeah.
And I mean, gets put in jail. And I mean, at best.
Yeah.
And I mean, shit. We I don't know. It's just a shame to see such a talented kid, because the kid's explosive. I can't deny his talent as much as I want to hate him as an opponent. Like, the kid is gross. He's absolutely incredible
Mm-hmm.
for the league, as far as his gameplay goes. I'm watching Memphis games before this kid,
Yeah.
but man, I don't know. I like to think that there's still hope, but his actions have proven that I think he's all about that other life.
Yeah.
And, maybe he's made enough at this point. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think just in closing, I think that we're just going to have to watch to see how this unfolds. And I think this is going to be a case that we're going to be talking about in years to come. And I'm hoping for a happy ending. And
Me too.
that's the only thing we can hope for at this stage is just the right thing is done. It's going to be a little bit of tough love from the NBA. And I think that this is going to have to just be something he's going to have to realize, like, he's screwing up and he's doing wrong. So that said, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. I know we threw a lot at you about John Morant. We definitely want to hear everybody's feedback. I've been getting messaged about it, and obviously Brian has been talking about it too. So we definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about that whole situation. And what about the coaching carousel going on in the NBA right now too? Let's talk about that, shall we? We're going to take one last break. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Alan Dunford here from Top Hat Studios, co-writer and co-creator of Pocus Hocus and Grandma Chainsaw, and you guys are listening to the ODPH podcast.
Gotta be down to the punch, 'cause they can't bring me down if I'm already under the ground.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast with Brian Wayne from Cheers to Comics on board. Pad, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about. Obviously, first is the local minute and looking at the Binghamton Rumble Ponies in the last week. They were at home playing the Hartford Yard Goats. They lost their game on Tuesday. Final score 11-9. Had a doubleheader on Wednesday. They won both of those. First one 6-2. Second game 2-0. Lost on Thursday 4-3. Lost again on Friday 10-9, and then again on Saturday 6-5. Won on Sunday though by the final score of 9-2. They are on the road this week playing New Hampshire. All from Tuesday through Sunday. Tuesday through Saturday, the games are at 6:35 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, 1:35 p.m. Eastern. They then return home for a series with Richmond on Tuesday, the 23rd. So for tickets, information, all that good stuff, bingrp.com. Then going to keep it baseball because there was a little kerfuffle last night at the New York Yankees-Toronto Blue Jays game. And the atrocious umpiring plays into it a little bit because the New York Yankees are playing the Toronto Blue Jays, up in Toronto for a couple game series. Home plate umpire, both teams were chirping at the home plate umpire throughout the night. His strike zone, a little questionable.
Mm-hmm.
At one point during the night when the Yankees were up 6-0 at the time, you had Aaron Judge at the plate. And there was a pitch that by every electronic tracking, because if you go to MajorLeagueBaseball.com, ESPN.com, if you have the Major League Baseball app, you can see where these pitches come in almost real time. There's a little bit of a delay because, hey, internet. Mm-hmm. But you could see that the pitch was like 4 inches below what the strike zone should be, and the umpire called it a strike, even though Judge didn't swing. So Judge wasn't thrilled with it, but he didn't say anything. You had Aaron Boone start arguing he was ejected from the game, but obviously the bad feelings between the team and the umpire continued, but a couple pitches after that, Judge then proceeded to hit a 462-foot home run to put the game even further out of reach. But what was noticed by the Toronto Blue Jays broadcasters in Buck Martinez, their play-by-play, one of their announcers, Dan Schulman, who a lot of you might remember the name if he used to do Sunday Night Baseball broadcasts for ESPN.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they noticed that in between pitches, while Judge was at the plate, he kept looking back at the dugout. And they're like, oh, I wonder what's going on here. Judge claimed that it was because some of the guys in his dugout were chirping, and he's kind of like trying to throw him a look like, hey, cut the shit. Mm-hmm. But the prevailing theory is that he was trying to get signs from the dugout, now not in any sort of like electronic banging on a trash can thing like the Astros, but that the Blue Jays were tipping pitches, and that they had picked up on something, and he was trying to pick up on what they're doing. Nothing illegal about this. It's an old part of the game. If you figure out what the pitcher's doing, and you're not doing it illegally with video cameras and trash cans, hey, that's on the up and up. There's nothing in the rules saying you can't do that. So, but of course you had the Toronto Blue Jays manager, come out and say, we think it's because the base coaches weren't where they were supposed to be. And he even went as far as to say, quote, this was today, we just want to make sure that every coach is where they should be on the field, and I'm confident that they will be going forward, close quote.
Oh, jeez.
Due to Buck Martinez and Dan Schulman and John Schneider, the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, go fuck yourselves. Like, was he trying to... Your guy's tipping pitches. It should have become fairly obvious that he was tipping pitches, and he should have gone out there and said, hey, you're tipping pitches. Like, you're doing, we need to look at the tape and figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just cut the shit.
Foolish reasons, but it's baseball. Brian, I mean, how you feeling about baseball these days?
Oh, and I don't watch a lot of regular season baseball, to be honest. And like I said, being a Chicago sports fan, Cubs fan, just a world of disappointment for the most part. So I don't have a lot of opinions about the MLB at this time. I do enjoy a good dugout drama, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Fair enough. And then let us end this show how we always do. We got to talk a little bit of pro wrestling. I know that you're not the biggest fan of it, but you know it. You kind of have to. You can't escape exactly what Roman Reigns is doing and Sami Zayn and the greatest storyline in all pro wrestling.
It's not that I'm not a fan. I just don't tune in every week. I tune into the premium events for sure, and I follow. Your podcast absolutely keeps me informed on all the storylines and everything going on. So I feel like I still watch it without having to watch it. But I love me a good premium event, that's for sure. But I've been catching some of the headlines here this week. Some interesting stuff. I'm intrigued to hear your guys' takes on all of this.
All right, Pad, what we got?
Yeah, so the next premium live event we got coming up is on May the 27th. That is a Saturday. I believe it starts at 1 p.m. Eastern because it's coming to us from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and that is Night of Champions. So this originally was going to be the King and Queen of the Ring pay-per-view because we were going to have King and Queen of the Ring tournaments taking place on the show. But since Roman at that, it's either before or right after or maybe on the night of, is scheduled to hit 1,000 days as WWE Universal Champion. So they decided to call an audible, change the name of the card. While we don't have the full card, we do have an updated card from what we knew previously. Of course, we knew based off of Monday Night Raw last week that we will have Cody Rhodes taking on Brock Lesnar in what is now a singles match. That might get a stipulation, we'll see, but we had some other stuff added to the card. As we found out on Friday last week, we knew Seth freaking Rollins was one of the final members in the tournament for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. We just needed to find out who the other one was. And to a lot of people's not really surprise, it is AJ Styles. So we, for maybe the first time on pay-per-view, I can't remember them facing each other on a pay-per-view. If it is, it's very low numbers. So that'll be going on. We found out on Monday Night Raw this week that Gunther will be defending his Intercontinental Championship against Mustafa Ali. That came as a result of a battle royale that took place on Monday night. So we will see the new man who is all sorts of positive, and his positivity led him to his Intercontinental Championship opportunity. And so we'll see what happens from that. But then this is where it gets interesting because you got three potential matches that could main event this card. I don't know how you pick. You got the Seth Rollins, AJ Styles for the Heavyweight Championship. You got Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. And you got the other one that was announced on Friday night, and that is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will be defending their undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships against the Bloodline. No, not Jimmy and Jey Uso. Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns. So everyone's worried about Roman 3 belts because, he's got LOL Roman wins. He's going to get the heavyweight championship. There is a possibility. It could be LOL Roman wins and we got Roman 4 belts. Don't think it's going to happen, but that is, you got 3 matches there that could main event this card.
You got some thoughts, Bri?
I'm just over the Reign, man. He doesn't need any more titles. The bloodline feud with Zayn and Owens, I think I think it's time to move on. Yeah, unless it comes down to Kevin Owens defeating Roman Reigns for the, undisputed championship, I just don't. I'm kind of over that whole. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting to see him in, as a tag, in a tag match, but I feel like it's just, I mean, I don't see them coming out ahead. I don't see them handing him any more gold. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a wasted main event opportunity. I mean, I don't know. It's a waste of a slot. Let's put it that way.
The matchup will be interesting. I don't think Roman's going to come out with the belt.
No, he's not coming out with the
He's
belt.
not coming out with the belt. I like what you said, and I agree with what you said on 607 TWS this week, that it's going to be a good match, and I think it's going to come close. But ultimately, what happens with every Roman Reigns match since he's had this run and since the bloodline has formed? You get interference from Jimmy and Jey Uso.
Yeah.
They always come out for the save.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the one time that they're going to, another time, they're going to, screw it up, super kick the wrong person or whatever it is, but they're going to come out and try to run interference and help them win, but it's ultimately going to cost Roman the match. And we're going to see that, that gap that's forming between Roman and the Usos and just kind of further that split. I don't think he's coming out with 4 belts because that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he's not coming
Okay.
out.
He's not coming out with 4 belts, but I think it's, the Owens and Sammy thing, which we got to say, hey, this is a big thing for Sammy wrestling in Saudi Arabia because he has not wrestled. This is according to the Wikipedia page. He has not wrestled in Saudi Arabia since a live tour in April of 2014. And that was because of the political reasons going on between Syria and Saudi Arabia. That's a whole thing. If we look it up online, there's plenty
Yeah,
of.
there's a lot to go.
There's a lot of information that you can look up and figure out why this has happened, but things have changed since then in the last couple of weeks even. So Sammy, out of caution, did not wrestle in Saudi Arabia. Kevin Owens, in solidarity with Sammy, had not wrestled in Saudi Arabia in some time. Things have changed. They're both going to be there, so that's going to be huge. But then,
Nice.
which is going to be cool to see. But no, I think ultimately Kevin and Sammy will retain. And this is just to kind of further the storyline with what's going on with the bloodline, that like Roman's not happy with Jimmy and Jey, that like he even called him out a little bit on SmackDown, where he said, "Hey, you guys screwed up. Apologize."
Mm-hmm.
And they only reluctantly apologized after he was ready to beat him down. And then when they announced the match, he was like, "Oh, we're going to do it in tribute to the greatest WWE tag team champions of all time." And he didn't say Jimmy and Jey, the longest reigning tag team champions of all time. He goes, "No, we're going to do it to the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika."
Yeah,
Like, you could have mentioned, your cousins or nephews or whatever it is, because
it's cousins.
the family tree is a whole thing.
Yeah,
But no, we're not giving it. We're not dedicating it to you. We're dedicating it to Afa and Sika.
I love how they set this up. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just in awe of how this storyline's playing out. I mean, I do like the idea now of this matchup kind of creating a further divide between the bloodline with the loss.
And if you haven't seen the clip, knowing all this information, pause the episode, go look up the clip from Friday Night SmackDown where they make this announcement, because it's the way they set this up is brilliant, because you got Paul Heyman making this announcement about the match, and you got Jimmy and Jey in the corner. One's trying to hype up the other, like, "Oh, we're going to get another chance. We're going to do this. We're going to win it back. We're going to bring it back to the bloodline." And you got Paul Heyman going, the belts will be, the matchup will be, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, he says with the utmost distaste in his voice that he can muster, going up against the bloodline and there's a pause, and he says Solo Sikoa. And the instant he says Solo, both of the Usos do the fastest 180 I've ever seen somebody do and go, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
It's not us?" It's just brilliant the way they're setting this up.
Everything they've done with this entire storyline and the mannerisms that Roman and even now Jey and Jimmy are doing is really selling this, that now it's crossing over into the pop culture audience. And I think anytime that you can do that with pro wrestling, it's nothing but win. And
That's a big win.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we all remember in the days when everybody was walking around and wearing NWO shirts and Austin 316. I mean, that was the biggest time of pro wrestling and pop culture. And now you're seeing Roman get there, and the fact they're extending this storyline, but they're keeping it fresh and throwing him in this tag match just to mix things up. And obviously, they're just setting up for him versus Jay, which, I mean, that's been the storyline all along. And we're going to finally start getting that because the pay-per-view after this is Money in the Bank. And that's where Jay wins it, I believe. Like, he'll defeat Cody Rhodes because something will happen, and Jay will wind up cashing it in and saying, you know, like, if you got a problem, let's do this once and for all. Not saying he's going to be the one to beat Roman, even though that would be something too. But I feel that this will be the start of the next phase of that storyline. And I think this is just nothing but win. And this entire card is just shaping up to be something to must watch.
Especially the match it's not announced yet, but we're all figuring is going to be taking place at Night of Champions is going to be Becky Lynch taking on Trish Stratus.
I believe that was announced last night.
Oh, it was? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not on the page I'm looking at, so apologies.
What a match.
Yeah, Becky Lynch versus Trish.
Yeah, dream match.
Yeah.
Absolute dream match.
I'm so pumped to see Trish back in action, man.
Yeah.
That's exciting for me. I had the opportunity to meet her as a kid. I attended so many damn WCW pay-per-views as a kid, and like live events and stuff. And yeah, I had the opportunity to meet her, and I mean, it's just seeing her still out there doing that makes me feel like I'm not as old as I am.
Yeah,
you know?
I forget how old she is now. I want to say she's like 49.
Something like that.
Yeah,
She's killing it.
Yeah, absolutely, just crushing it. And like I say, to see her against Becky, that's going to be a must-watch match. I mean,
47.
Yeah, like, apologies. But still, just doing what she's capable of doing in the ring at this age, I mean, it's just awesome. And like I say, this is a dream match to see. And how they're shaping up this entire card, it's making this to be a must-watch event. And obviously, whenever they've gone over to Saudi Arabia for the shows, they've always been, you know,
house shows,
a glorified house show. Yeah, like I say, nothing really crazy happened.
The first one, they put every belt on the line and nothing changed.
Yeah. So now something's going to happen there. They're going to put on a great show. It's going to be must watch on the Peacock next week. We'll be previewing it on next week's episode.
Like I said, could be wrong, but I'm almost positive it's a 1 p.m. Eastern start time. So
yes.
Because it's over from Saudi Arabia. So if you tune into 8 o'clock on the Peacock, well, you'll probably be watching the replay.
Yeah, but nothing wrong with it because there's going to be a lot of great action to be had. So that said, we definitely want you to hit us up on the hashtag. Let us know what you thought about the WWE card, the announcements that are going down. And if you're looking for even more pro wrestling content, remember to check out 607 TWS on your favorite podcast providers because we definitely do a lot of deep diving into the land of pro wrestling there. Before we get out of here, Brian, first and foremost, thank you for swinging through. You know you're always welcome to come on. Why don't you tell the people how to find you and the Cheers to Comics podcast?
Oh man, it was a pleasure being on here, guys. It was awesome talking sports with you. You can find Cheers to Comics at Cheers to Comics on pretty much every social media platform, from TikTok to Twitter. Join the Cheers to Comics Facebook group.
Yes.
There's some fun interaction in there. Lots of great information gets thrown throughout there, and some pretty sweet creators that pop in and out of there too. They throw down some tasty little nuggets to share out. Hit up that. But also, you could find me doing auction and reply sales throughout there as well. While I revamp my web store, you're looking for awesome books for pretty amazingly competitive prices. Sometimes they're just flat out steals. Join the Facebook group. I will guide you to those sales. Other than that, it's just Google Cheers to Comics. We're here. Been around for 4.5 years now. We're here, man. It's been fun chatting with you guys too for these last few years. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I mean, like I say, you're always welcome to come on, and I know we are due to talk some comics sooner than later at an episode to be determined before the Cheersies each year. So we definitely have to do that at a later date. We'll just have to.
Man, I've been reading some amazing stuff too, man. Some amazing stuff that I just have to talk about. So anytime, and you guys like your indies too, and I appreciate that about you.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we're gonna get down on the mic again soon for sure.
Very, very soon, my friend. So that being said, for anything and everything that is the ODPH, whether it's the TeePublic Store link, whether it's Patreon link, whether it's links to 3FN podcast and everything they're doing over at 8122 Productions, Dragon Master Games, the music section, the blog section. If it is anything and everything that is the ODPH, you can find it at odphpodcast.com. That's it for the sports edition. So for the one and only Padawan J.
Houston gets a pass this week. Fuck the Blue Jays.
There he goes. For the one and only Brian Wayne.
Hey, I'm going to have to swear a little bit here. Cheers, fuckers.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. See you next time.
Gotta be down to the punch. Gotta be down to the punch. 'Cause they can't bring